We're going to begin. We're going to start, and I really want to thank the promoters for their hospitality, for their achnaf. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. And we came up with this idea when a few people were sitting around my Shabbos table. When was it? November? December? Something like that. Was it October? I don't remember. And we're talking about different ideas that we can do, and we came up with this title, and we thought to come to fruition, so it was very exciting. And a special shout out.
We first thought of the title, and then thought of the event.
Oh, that's true. The titles are more important than the event. Steak. And of course, we want to thank Chef Mitch for. Thank you. Chef, he's going to do a presentation with time for questions. I'm going to also do a little bit of a spiel, and then we'll just flow from there. Take it away, Chef Mitch.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Does this look appetizing to everybody?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So the first thing I want to do is give a quick spiel on what this is, what it's called, how you buy it, how you tell the difference between this and something else when you go to the supermarket. Because a lot of people are, confused. They don't know what they're looking at when they go to the supermarket. They're looking to buy for Shabbos or buy some place for home. And what's the difference between a Spencer and what's a shoulder and what's a neck and what's a rib steak? What is it? Okay? And it's important to know. This is a prime rib. So anybody that's ever been any place where you have quote-unquote prime rib, that is this roasted whole. Okay? And there are varying grades of meat. This is beef, of course. And this comes from the United States. So the grade on this would be USDA prime. Locally, that would be a AAA. Okay? But that said, a piece of AAA or USDA prime beef, especially prime rib, it's only going to be soft with the appropriate age. Okay? So the term fresh meat, you don't ever want to eat freshly shafted beef. There are certain things that you always eat fresh, very fresh, like the organ meat. A tongue can be pickled, but you're going to eat it fresh. The liver, the whatever else it is like that, you're going to eat that fresh. But this, if it has anything less than 3 weeks, and really anything less than 4 weeks, it's going to be tough. It needs time to age. Okay? So this I got from my supplier. You're not likely to find these whole in the counter. Usually you'll find them cut into thirds, okay, and occasionally a half, and there will be some trim on it. And I brought it in like this so that I can show you how to do the trim, okay, so that if you ever got a good deal on a larger piece, you know how to trim it and what to look for. And what we're going to do tonight is we're actually going to take this off the bone, so you can see the ribs. We're going to cut steaks. We're going to grill them.
I had a question.
Yeah.
I had a question. In the store, when you buy prime rib, will have a due date like that. Expiry date,
right?
Like a week out.
Right.
Does that mean it's already at the 3 weeks?
It should already be correct. So basically, what it means is that when an animal goes into the schlachthouse and they do the shechita and it's broken down, it's fabricated into primal cuts. Okay, this being one of the primal cuts, and then they're going to take it and they're going to put it into a vacuum pack bag. What's called a cryback. Okay, they wrap some bone guard around it, which is a heavy waxy paper that like a mesh that prevents the bones from breaking the bag, and then it sits. Okay, and all of these primal cuts go into a case. And it's got the lot, the date that it was shechted, etc., so you know that how old it is, and that's how they rotate it. What happens is that this will go into your Sobeys or Toronto Kosher, whatever it is. They're going to open it up, and then they're going to do to it what we're going to do tonight. Okay, minus the fact that they've got a bandsaw, and so they can do some different things, like cutting rib steaks. So rib steak is this put onto a bandsaw and just cut to whatever thickness that they want to cut it. The other thing too is though that there still has to be some trim done on it. And part of the spiel that I'm going to give you tonight is what to look for when you're buying a rib steak and how to know when you're being taken a little bit.
Just out of interest, you said it should be 3 to 4 weeks aged beforehand.
4 weeks for sure.
And then at which point does it start decreasing in quality?
So at some point it will go rotten. But what really should happen, the best steak. So when people came to 398, okay, I was the chef at 398. People would come there and they would have a steak, especially those of us that were not Jewish, and they eat everywhere else. And they come and they say, "Wow, it's amazing steak. It's at least as good as what I had over there. I never had something like that before kosher." Or for somebody like myself, who's only like 6 years Shomer Kashrus, right, Shomer Shabbos, and all of a sudden come coming into the kosher world, you go out for a steak and it's more of a kapara than anything else, right? So what do? And you want to be able to do this well yourself. So what I would do is at 398, I did the exact same thing that I would do any other place that I worked previously, okay? And that is that this comes into me, I take it out of the bag, and I had a special cooler that had a lot of air circulation, the right humidity, and you then dry age it. And the dry aging, what it does is it allows a different type of bacteria to grow that are good bacteria. We want those. We'll talk about that very quickly. And it also enables it to dry a little bit, and it develops a really nice flavor. Okay? That's important. So the first thing, when you go into the store and you look for a piece of flesh, and you know a lot of times you go in and you see these beautiful wrapped saran steaks, and they look bright red, like bright red nail polish. Don't buy this. This is your first step to having a nice chew. Okay? This is not what we want in a steak. You want something, if you look at the side of this, okay, you're going to see that it looks a little bit more dark. Okay? That's what you're looking for. Just wash the office here.
Are the stores permitted by law to color the steak red?
No, you can't use any color. Once upon a time, that was actually an issue. They used to color ground beef,
right?
Because the brighter red it was, the more people wanted that. Now, when it comes to ground beef, you want nice bright red. But if you take this and you put it through a grinder, you're going to have nice bright red. Okay, when it starts to go gray, it's oxidizing. It's just the oxygen interacting with it, okay, with the blood. Or when one steak touches another, this is why you have that peach-colored paper. It's actually called market peach, okay? And it separates the chatzitza between the steaks. It prevents them from oxidizing. But after some time, it will begin to happen, and you will get that flavor, okay? So this.
They also put the yellow light, warm lights over the meat counters too.
Warm lights?
Yeah.
No, not warm lights.
Warm color, yellow color. I've seen a lot of over the fruit and meat department.
It's a marketing thing.
Yeah, to make it look more red.
Right. That's a marketing thing. So this piece of flesh came. This is from Rosenblatt from the States. This is actually in the two hashkafot. They're OU, CRC. OU is the Orthodox Union. Strong hechsher for flesh. And the CRC is from Chicago. Again, very strong hechsher for flesh. Not all hechsherim are created equal. So it's good to know. All right. So start.
Should I shoot to that side? Or no?
Yeah. What I'll do is I'm just going to show off the two sides. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is just educating a little bit on how to order a steak and how to know what it is that you're looking for out of this. Okay, when you're serving your family or when you're going out to a restaurant. I would have people that say to me at 398, they'd say, I come up to the table, how was your steak? Terrible. You tell me it's terrible. This is the best place in the city. For sure. It was fatty, it was schmaltzy. Tell your server you wanted a lean steak? No. Okay, well, they don't come with a crystal ball. Okay? And for some reason our people, we have this preconceived notion that everybody eats the way we eat, okay? So it's a good thing that I don't have this notion because my father will show him he would take a rib steak, put it into the broiler, and just turn it to gray, and that's how he'd serve it. So thank goodness for Heinz ketchup. Okay, so here's the difference. Here's what to do when you look at this. It's important to understand how this was. This is the front part of the animal. This is from what we call the chuck end. Okay, the chuck is from the front. Usually you see ground chuck, that's ground beef. Okay. This muscle doesn't do a lot of work, therefore it is soft. The more work a muscle does, the more flavor it has, but also the tougher it will be. That's why from a neck, we grind it, you make hamburgers. Okay, that way it's not tough, but you get good flavor. Okay, so this, used to walk along like this. Okay, okay? So this is called the chuck end. This is the rump end. This is between the 12th and 13th rib. Back here, this is the actual definition. This is the end of what is considered kosher. From here back, this is trimmed. Okay? So this is where the strip loin starts from back here. And the important thing is that up here, you know when you go and you buy a rib steak and you see it's got a big wedge of schmaltz right in the middle. Some of them. Okay? And then others don't. Why? Because it starts at this end, you have that wedge of schmaltz, and then the muscle structure changes toward the back end. So if somebody wants a leaner steak, you give it from the back. Okay? Or you can just, when you go to the supermarket, or if you're going to call up Toronto Kosher, you go, wherever you're ordering from, Hartman's, you're gonna ask them, if you like a leaner steak, I want a rump end steak. If you want a schmaltzier steak, I want a chuck end steak. You may or may not get good reception when you, when you say this. All right, it may not be received so well. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to, thank you. First thing I'm going to do, okay, so this is my steak knife. Most of you are not likely to have one of these around unless you do an awful lot of butchery. But everybody should have a steel, okay? You should have a good sharp knife, you should have a steel. The steel is magnetic, okay? And part of its job is to take the very fine edges that come off, and they kind of do this, and when you rub it, it should be like this. You got a nice smooth cut. So the first thing, it takes practice to learn how to use it, okay? But it's important to be able to do that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this from the bones, okay? Now, you see down here, there's a big piece of schmaltz, and you can see that the steak is here. So really, mamish, we're going to end up trimming, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is, if you see, there's rib, okay? And all I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cut into the ribs. Well, not into the ribs, into the flakes, just above the ribs, okay? We're lucky. When you go to Sobeys, their ribs are probably the best in town. They leave a lot of flesh on the bones. So they charge a little bit more for their ribs, but they leave a lot of flesh. So...
It's so good looking.
Right? Chef Mitch, how often have you cut yourself?
How often?
How often does it happen?
Infrequently.
Baruch Hashem. I don't want to give myself a hurry here. Sorry,
Let's wait till after.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. So I trimmed this off like this because this way I'll actually be able to get some meat on the bones when we go to serve that. Okay? This needs first to be braised. This is a whole different cooking technique. This I would mark off on my grill, and then I'm going to put it into the oven, cover it, a little bit of liquid, maybe some broth, onions, whatever I want to put in there, and I cook it until it's tender. Then you let it cool and it's ready to go on a barbecue. Right now, if you put this on a barbecue, you're going to end up having to floss your teeth an awful lot after. Okay? So it's important to know this. So that when you go and you buy ribs in the supermarket, first of all, when you go into Sobeys, for example, and you see that 4 ribs will cost you $20, the reason for it is because they're leaving a lot of flesh on there. It's important to know. Okay? Now,
So it's worth it to buy for that extra few bucks.
it is.
If you like the ribs.
Yeah, if you like barbecue ribs. I have not ever met anybody aside from vegetarians that don't like barbecue ribs. But
I don't know. I never like barbecue ribs.
okay, so
But you can make them for me.
you're right.
You know, there's a big difference.
Now this I'm going to take off. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a use. This in the butcher shop would go into the mince. Okay? Into the mince. This would be ground. Okay? Because you've got some flesh that is very, very lean. Okay? So when you want to make, let's say, meatballs or something like that, you might be inclined to buy medium ground beef. So what does that mean? It is a government specified and defined percentage of fat that can be in with the ground meat. Okay? So this, I mean, a chef won't throw anything away. I would roast this down, render it down, and I would use it. Okay? So now we're starting to get something that looks a little bit more like a ribeye steak, but we still have a bit of trimming to do. So the structure of this. Ribs were here. Okay? The spine was back here, what we call the chine. And this has actually been trimmed nicely. Usually you'll see a lot of sinew here. So I don't have a lot of trimming to do, which is good. Okay? A little bit. It's insignificant. Okay? Insignificant amount. Okay. But now, what I want to do is I want to trim down the schmaltz. Because I don't want all that much. If you put that onto the grill, all that's going to happen is it's going to flame up. And that chars your meat. You don't want that. Okay? So this again, it's used.
That's a lot of rendering.
So this is the thing. This sort of naturally brings me to the next point. Kosher flesh here in Canada, inexplicably, I cannot give you a reason why it is so expensive. I understand that there are certain factors that contribute. If you take 100 head of cattle to shechita, you might, on a really good day, get 25 that pass muster for kashrus. Okay? The rest of it is automatically sold off at zero profit, but at a break even for the guy who has the shechita to the slaughterhouse. But now, when I get this, I have to trim it further. Because if I serve you all of that junk, what are you eating? You're not going to be happy with that. Okay? Which is, like I was saying earlier, how to know when you're being taken. So when you go to the store and somebody makes a steak for you, and there's a big piece of bone across the back, okay? This bone here, if it's on there, that's fine. You bought a rib steak. But when they have the piece of bone up the back, as far as I'm concerned, highway robbery. Because they're not charging you less for putting it on there. They're just copying the money from you. Okay? That's the reality. All right. Not everybody does that. So.
You saying it's okay if it's the rib?
The back part, this rib here, absolutely. So if you're ordering a rib steak, that's fine. It is a natural, an integral part of a rib steak. But this piece of bone that would be residing back here has no business being on your steak.
That's the spine?
It's called a chine, and it is part of what makes up the spinal structure. But basically, it's weight.
And how can we tell that if that part's being added or not?
It's not being added.
Or sorry, if it's not removed.
Well, because what you're going to see is bone that's coming across the back here. So in addition to having this curved bone that's in the back, which are your ribs, okay, you've got a piece of bone back here. Right? So if you've ever heard of a T-bone,
yeah.
Okay, a T-bone is a proper steak that comes from behind. This comes from beyond the strip loin, and what you have is a piece of tenderloin which resides on the inside of the rib, the strip loin which is out here on the outside of the rib, and then there's the piece of chine, and it literally nourishes the teeth. Okay, so that's how that works. So this, what I'm going to do, that doesn't need much more trim. Okay, but out here, I am going to trim this just a touch more, because again, I don't want the flame ups, and I'm not interested in eating a lot of schmaltz, okay? So the difference is when you go to a good restaurant with properly trained chefs.
Have there any of those left here?
I plead the fifth.
Question, what do you do with all the rendered fat?
Well, there's a number of things you can do. I have to make beef stock. I need to make veal jus, proper jus. No powder, okay? No beef-based powder. Proper veal reduction is made with bones, roasted bones. But you also need vegetables that you have to roast. So how do you roast them? You don't dry roast them, they just burn. So for me personally, instead of using vegetable oil or olive oil, I render this to use it. It has the majority of the flavor from the beef, and I'm not paying extra money for olive oil. Okay, what's the point? So I render this. It comes out when it comes out of the fridge after, it's pure white. Okay, so it's nice and clean, and now you've got flavor. You're building flavor. Flavor is built in layers like houses. Okay. Now, this is.
Aren't you glad you asked?
This is a ribeye. Okay. This is a ribeye. So now from here we can do a couple of things. Well, listen, it's not a lot of fat. You think about when you. It seems like a lot. You should see actually how much was already trimmed. It's already gone through the mass production of ground beef. Okay? So now, I'm going to cut a steak. Okay? So that's what you see. Thank him, not me. He made it.
Like that, that's your berry.
That looks good.
Yeah, you take the blackberry away.
Okay, so this is already what you see when you go to the supermarket, right?
Right.
Now, if you're, well, yeah, it normally doesn't look quite as nice as
That
right?
looks really nice.
So this is trimmed properly, okay, and also it has a nice bit of marbling. So I spoke earlier about age. So how can you tell if it's aged? One thing, like I said, the color, it doesn't look like a ruby. It doesn't look blood red like, what you see in the stores a lot of times. And what difference does it make? When I take my pinky finger and I'm going to touch it. See how the dent stays? You're going to see in a few minutes.
If we do that in a store, they might arrest us.
You can do it right through the plastic.
Oh, yeah, you
On
can?
the show packs, you can touch it. And you'll see the difference.
Are you going to eat that after?
Yes, you're going to eat that after. Okay? And you're going to see this steak here, okay, just so you know, I spoke to the supplier back when Rabbi Greenberg spoke to me about this program, and we put this rib aside so that it would be aging. Okay? And after, when this is cooked, you can cut this with a plastic knife and fork. Okay? That's the difference.
Right.
Right.
You bought plastic knives.
Well,
some of the stuff that would be. It doesn't matter. It's only going to go into my freezer tonight anyway. Maybe I'll render it tonight.
How long do leaving it to be ready to cook?
So this is an important thing to bring up. So our balabais is starting up the barbecue. So first of all, how do you properly use a barbecue? So the first thing you need to know is you first start up your barbecue and let it run for about 10 to 15 minutes, full blast. Okay?
Cover on?
Cover on. Full blast, 15 minutes. What you want to do is you want to burn it out. It cleans the bars, especially if you use barbecue sauce. There's a lot of sugar there, and you need to burn them off. Okay? So I'm just going to split these.
At what temperature?
Full temperature, high heat. Let it come up to 700, 800, doesn't matter. Over 15 minutes. Because what you want to do is once it's burned off like that, you know when you go and you pick up your brush and your brush. No, it's fine. It's fine. When you pick up your brush and you clean your grill and you get all kinds of barbecue sauce trapped in it. Okay. So even still, but if there's schmaltz or something like that. So what happens when you burn your barbecue properly? First of all, it's important for the health of the barbecue. Your burners and the inside of the barbecue needs to burn like that so that you don't develop soil because it can become flammable. And I've actually gone up to cater at people's houses and used their barbecue and they've lit up on me. So it happens. So it's very important that you burn it like that. And then also if you do use sauce, which tends to have a lot of sugar, that will take care of the issue. That will take care of the issue. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut a couple more steaks, and I'm going to then show you another way that we can cut this. Yeah, this is a beautiful piece of flesh. So now you can see, here's this big wedge of schmaltz that I was talking about. Okay? Right here. Now some places you're going to go, like Sobeys for example, they dig that wedge of schmaltz out there because most of the Yidden, if they see it, they complain. And that's fine, because you can take it out, and what they do, just like this. They'll just carve this out. That's it. And you just form it back together.
The way with the schmaltz in it first, right?
Beg your pardon?
The way with the fatty in it first.
No. What they do is they just calculate what the yield is, okay, and the price per unit goes up. So this is why a rib steak should have a lower price per unit, right? Your lower price per kilo. So maybe a rib steak is at $34.99 a kilo, and a rib eye steak might be $39.99 a kilo because they're taking the bones. But the thing you need to know is they're charging for having removed the bones, and then they're going to take the bones and sell them to you.
Isn't sometimes the bones give you a better flavor when you burn?
Bones always give you a better flavor. Always. Okay? So, as I say, I'm going to cut a few more steaks here.
It used to be a chuck steak, or, like fillet meat steak.
It's a terrible thing to say. It's horrible that they call it that. This is not a steak. There are only a few cuts on the animal that you can actually steak. And a steak, by definition, is a piece of meat that can be cooked quickly. It's a primary cut, meaning that it is the first most desirable piece. Then there are secondary and tertiary cuts. So tertiary cut, for example, as Jews, we make a habit of eating tertiary cuts because it's peasant food. It's what our cuisine is built on. Some of the best food in the world is peasant food. Some of the most expensive food in the world is peasant food. And what we do is we take a brisket, which is a tertiary cut, and we braise it slowly, and it's like soft like butter when you get the double. Right? And it's so much flavor. I love a brisket. Cholent, you wouldn't put this into a cholent. It's a crime. It's a waste. But the shank and the flunken and the chuck steak are brilliant for that. So that's what a chuck steak is good for.
It takes longer to soften, so it needs longer heat.
That's right. I beg your pardon?
That you also wouldn't want bright red?
I don't want any of my flesh bright red like that because it just when you have the age on it, it develops a flavor. It's not just about tenderness; it's also the flavor. And the reason for it is that there are bacteria at work, good bacteria. They don't harm us. What do? all of this muscle tissue is held together by connective tissue, mainly collagen. Okay? And these good bacteria, all they do is they eat the collagen. They break it down to a point where it's soft. Right? They're harmless to us, but it's much slower. So basically, in the bag, when if you find a piece of flesh that's been in a cryovac bag, so that ages basically dry age versus wet age. So dry meaning out in the air in your refrigerator versus in the bag in the refrigerator, it's 2 to 1. So every day dry has the same effect as 2 days wet in terms of the age and softening the meat. How many are we? 2.
What's the difference between like a London broil and like a brisket?
So a brisket is the breast of the cow. Okay? The London broil is the cut that comes out of the shoulder, comes out of the chuck. And the difference is that a London broil, you can sear it and you can cook it long and slow and still serve it medium rare, and it'll be lovely. Anytime you serve a brisket medium rare, it's going to hurt your jaws chewing, no matter what. Okay, now just very quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something else I do with this. If you wanted a smaller steak, and for some people, you know, when they talk to me about catering their wedding, and they want to do a dual plate, they want to have, let's say, chicken and beef on the plate, or they want to do a smaller steak, okay? What we can do is we can fabricate what we will call a fillet. So a fillet is really the tenderloin, which we can't eat. But in kashrus, what I can do is I can fabricate a steak that looks almost exactly like a fillet, that will still be beautifully tender because it's made of this, okay? And here you have this cap out here. So if I was going to do this with the whole piece, I would remove the whole cap first, and then I would have a loin. And then what I would do is exactly what I'm going to do here. This is all what's called silver skin, okay? It's tough, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to remove it. It's not difficult to remove because it is so tough that all you do is you basically poke your knife through, and then you run it back, okay? So I'm going to remove this. Now fat is important on a steak, on a piece of meat, because it protects the meat while it's cooking. It gives it moisture and it gives it flavor. Okay? So here, because we're cooking a steak, which is a short cook, high heat short cook, so it's okay if we remove it. We just have to guard how we're cooking it. In other words, we wouldn't want to cook this till well done.
What use do you have for silver skin?
Nothing.
You throw that away?
Nothing gets thrown away. There are recycling plants. There are recycling plants for this. And what they will do is, in some cases, they pick it up and they take it, they render it, and it goes into making biofuels. In other cases, they will take it and it will go off to make feed for animals.
You're going to do that with them?
No.
No.
What kind of animals would you say?
Chazir.
What do you do with all the extra meat?
Extra. Nothing. So like I say, this would get rendered out, or it would go into the grind, into the mince, but not the silver skin. The silver skin, you never want to do that with that. So here, you've got a little piece of this cap left. Okay. Now this is actually one of the best parts of the whole animal, right there, the cap. It's so wonderful. Okay. So here I'm just going to trim this off, and you'll see exactly, anybody that's ever seen a fillet steak, if you've ever seen a tenderloin. Okay. So now.
How much should a cow be before it's ready for good age for a steak?
So first of all, you actually don't want to eat cow. Cow is the female. Okay. This is not great. So a steer is what we want to eat. It's a neutered male, and that animal would be close to 2 years. It's 18 months.
Oh, it's a steer.
Yeah, a steer. Yeah.
Why does it have to be neutered?
Why? Because when we go through the process of removing this organ from the male, he becomes more schmaltzy and tastier. Which, by the way, it's done with a lot of different animals. So in chicken, it's called a capon. Right? So same thing. So here, now, I can actually cut. Right. Yeah, a fillet tender normally is thick. Now here you can see this is a little bit tough still. Right here. Yeah, sure. Filet mignon is it's behind, so you have the prime rib, and the next cut, like going from the 14th rib onward toward the back of the animal, that's a New York strip. And on the inside of the rib cage hangs this muscle. That's called the tenderloin. And it does nothing. It does zubi, which is why it is so soft.
What's the best you can use?
That's a matter of personal preference. For me, my favorite steak on the animal is a rib steak, so becoming kosher for me was no problem. I didn't suffer. But for those people that are stuck on having a fillet, I'm not as big on the fillet because it doesn't have as much flavor for me, right? Because it doesn't do the work. It's soft. It's so soft. I mean, you can even cook it to well done, and it'll be soft. Whereas this, I mean, yeah, you can cook this to well done, and it'll be soft, but more from the front end. Okay, so now that's the butchery aspect of it. People used to say to me, wow, your steak it's amazing. What do you marinate it in? Nothing. I don't, because the premise is like this, okay? And this is why, my customers come to me, they're looking for food, real food, not just slop something on a plate. Buy the best product you can, do the least to it possible, just let the quality of it show through, okay? So all I do with my steaks is exactly what we're going to do tonight. Extra virgin olive oil, kosher salt or fine sea salt, and fresh cracked black pepper. I urge you never to buy ground pepper. Okay, fine ground pepper. It's a culinary derailment. It's terrible. It's a bitter hell. It's terrible because you know what? You end up with nothing but this heat, little flavor. What I'm gonna do? No, do me a favor. Take the lid off of the pepper and pass it around. Let everybody get a schmack.
What's that pepper called?
This is just black pepper, but I toasted the peppercorns and I grind them. So I've got a coffee grinder that I only use for peppercorns. So you give it a smack. Yeah, don't breathe in too hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Chef Mitch, what's the policy on dip?
Well, I'm going to cook them up,
Okay.
and you guys can fight it out.
Okay.
All right?
Now, what's the ideal kind of thickness are you looking for? Is that personal taste?
There isn't ideal thickness, no, because one person wants a 10-ounce steak, another person wants a 12. Other people will come and they would have a 24-ounce steak. I had these little tiny women that would come in and have a 24-ounce steak. I can't do it, believe it or not. 10, 12 ounces, I'm done. And they'd be like, and then you know what was amazing? I'd come up to the table, and she would switch the plate with her boyfriend or her husband, because she wanted a little bit of his too.
Wow.
So now it doesn't look like she's eating 2 plates of food. Amazing. Okay, a volunteer to do me a favor and pour a little bit of olive oil out, please. You want to do it? Well, somebody needs to reach in and grab that. Great. But do you smell a difference? Anybody?
Yeah.
Smell different? What
how
it is?
How much am I pouring in?
No, not in there.
Not in there.
Don't pour it in there. Just pour it on the steaks.
Can I do the pepper?
Just,
How much?
No, I'm going to do the pepper. It's important. Just give a strip right along the top, yeah, and do the same thing along here. Okay. Very, very complicated thing. There you go.
That is the most I've done in the kitchen in 14 years.
And his wife is here, so you guys can actually check.
Only 14 years?
14 years in a week.
Nice. There you go. All right. So, first thing, and also important when you're going to grill your steaks, you should let the meat come to room temperature. Okay? Try not to grill coming right out of the fridge. No, I'm going to do both sides. So,
How long would you let this sit overnight? My son being said they should keep this sauteed overnight. Is that true?
marinated, you mean?
Yeah, marinated.
Well, it depends what you do. I mean, I know people that do all manner of like crazy things, and they marinate their beef this way and that, and you can. There's no problem marinating your beef, especially with a tougher cut. Benefits from a bit of marinating. It can help to soften it a bit further. The last thing you want to do is buy a product that is, garbage, let's say, and then have to buy chemical penetrants.
That's what I've seen in the store. They hammer the meat.
Well, there's nothing wrong with those cuts where you make if you're making like a scallopini or something like that. There's nothing wrong with having to take the mallet and tenderize it.
What's a scallopini?
Scallopini is a very, very thin slice of meat, so you get them like a cutlet, right? So in French, if you're looking at a French menu, you're going to see it referred to as an escalope. In Italian, it's a scallopini, right?
And Jews call it a really small piece of meat.
That's it. They say, that's it? You call that a scallopini? So, The entrecote comes from this. That's right. Entrecote literally means it's between. It's the cut between the bones. So what would happen is that's right.
No.
And so entrecote, the proper term, Rabbi, if you want to do me a favor and hit me again there on this side. The entrecote, what it would be is so you do your prime rib, and for each of the people, you cut and you get a rib. So you get a rib, but not everybody gets a rib. There's going to be a piece of flesh that doesn't have a rib on it. That's the entrecote. So chefs are good at using everything, and that's how they make use of everything. So they find a recipe to create a dish. Okay.
What about the salt? You said you did salt as well.
So I haven't put the salt on there yet. I put the salt on just before they go on the grill, because the salt will dry the flesh. Now, Caroline asked a question earlier, do you use salt even though that the flesh is kosher and has been salted? Yeah. Yes, because you bury, the meat gets buried in salt, but then afterward it's leached out. They put it into water and they leach out the salt. So if you don't normally eat with salt at all, then you wouldn't add salt, because you don't eat with it. But normally speaking, if you're going to cook a steak actually requires a fair amount of salt. Just before you cook it. Yeah, it'll just dry it out. It'll toughen it. The massaging is important. The massaging is. Oh, one other thing. You'll notice I'm not wearing gloves. Okay. Right. You notice I'm not wearing gloves. Toronto Public Health really discourages the use of gloves. Okay? Hand washing is the best form of protecting yourself and the consumer. Problem with gloves is people seem to think that they are a magical skin, that you can wash them, which you cannot, that they will take a pair of gloves off, they will not wash their hands, and they will put a fresh pair of gloves on. That's unsanitary. People seem to think that with those gloves, that they can then turn around and touch something that you wouldn't normally want to touch and then touch food, but, well, I'm wearing gloves. Not good. Soap and water, okay? I can tell you in my kitchen, I use the same kind of soap that you have in a hospital. All right, so it's a little bit more gentle on your skin, so it doesn't completely eat you up, but it kills the bacteria. Okay, there's nothing wrong with somebody with clean hands touching your food, preparing your food.
Right? Something about the boards. I know when I lived in Montreal years ago, they stopped some of those steakhouses from serving with the boards because of the bacteria.
With wood.
Wood. No, you're using. I'm not saying it's. What's the story?
You're right. Back in the 80s, there all of a sudden was this craze by somebody who was ridiculously unintelligent, and they started this whole madness. Plastic is better. First of all, anybody here that anybody has a glass cutting board, don't put your hand up. When you go home, throw it out. Okay, ruins your knives. And it's really not good, especially if you ever have to give it a club, you can break it. The plastic boards. So the very reason that the health guys said that the wood is not good is the reason the health guys have now said, oh, wood is better. Problem was it's porous. And they say, well, it's porous, so therefore the bacteria, the juices, whatever gets trapped in there. Okay, so here's the way things work. Plastic. I come along with my knife and I'm working, and anybody that's worked on a plastic cutting board knows that when you're using it, you cut the plastic. Okay? Yeah. Food particles get trapped in there. You keep working, and that groove gets covered over. You now have food that's stuck in there. It's perishable. It's rotting. Next time you come back and use your cutting board, you're making cuts. Now you open it up, and now what you have are pathogens. Okay, you have toxins that you have just released to your meat. Why is the wood better? Because it is porous. It's a matter of how you handle your wood. Okay, what you do. You remove any of the visible debris, so you scrape it, okay? Like I'll use the back of my knife and I'll scrape the board down. I'll show you what I do after with my bony knife. And then you wash it, and you're supposed to have what's called a quaternary sanitizer. It's an ammonia-based sanitizer, okay? At a very, it's 250 parts per million is what we use, okay, as a dilution. It's something that I don't know if you can get it on the retail market easily. For us in the kitchens, I know you can. But what you're supposed to do is once your board is clean, we spray it down heavily with the quat sanitizer, and you don't dry it off. You leave it to air dry overnight. And it penetrates into the pores of the wood. And it does away with the bacteria. Better than anything could ever do with the plastic. And it doesn't hurt your knives.
Plastic okay for vegetables? Same thing.
It's the same thing, really, because you think about it. You know, one of the warnings that people that you see more and more in the marketplace now is that wash your vegetables, wash your vegetables, wash your vegetables, wash your fruit, wash your vegetables. There's a lot of bacteria on fruits and vegetables. So, as far as I'm concerned, from the standpoint of your knives, if you're saying earlier your knives are all, the edges are demolished, the wood will extend the life of the knives as well for health. So what I'm going to do, just very quickly, before these go to cook, there's a little bit. I'm going to add on to these. So basically,
what are you doing with that tiny strip that you just threw on?
I'm going to cook it.
The little tiny thing won't get consumed by the fire?
No. Okay. So here's what I do. Okay, and they actually make a variety of tools for chefs and butchers to use for their board. But basically, this is my boning knife. This one happens to be flexible, and I can actually scrape my board. And this is what I will do every time I use it.
That's the back of your knife.
That's the back of the knife. Okay, it's called the spine of the knife.
Look how much is coming out.
And you
It looks like it's just creating meat, but it's not.
No, it's wood. That's actually wood.
Oh.
That's wood. That's like sawdust, but it's wet. Right? So you see, you scrape it right down, which not only removes the debris, but also it opens up the pores. So that when you wash it, that penetrates. It's not ammonia, but it's an ammonia-based sanitizer. Okay? I mean, you could use a latent solution of bleach and water. Okay? You could do that as well. Okay? And that's the way you properly care for a wood board. And they will last a long time. I mean, I've had this board now for 4 years.
Wait, but every time you scrape a little bit of the wood off,
look how thick it is.
eventually you have to.
Buy a new board?
Yeah.
Too bad. We suffer for our art. No, it's just what it is. This one is more. The average person isn't going to have one like this. This one is. It's very heavy, but I do an awful lot of butchery, and you know, I need that weight to it. That's fine. That's more than fine. That'll do just fine. Okay. So I'm going to season these with some salt. Just going to put a touch more oil on these ones, and then to cook these are only going to take about 10 minutes to cook. You know.
And 10 minutes will make it raw, medium well.
No, 10 minutes is going to take us to about medium rare. Medium rare is really the ideal way to eat your meat. Somebody that eats it rare, they prefer that, it's fine. For those of us that like the flesh to be chefed a second or third time, you know, so be it. That's, you know, shakul songu, each their own. That's it. That's it. Yeah, the korbanos has happened. It's been done. You don't need to cook it to well done. It's for health. As a matter of fact, eating well done beef is much harder on your digestive system. Okay, and also beef is like the easiest place for us to eat is lamb. The easiest to eat is lamb.
It's the fatty.
It's the healthiest.
No, it's not. It's not fatty. It's you trim whatever.
But also isn't it the healthiest because the animal hasn't had time to build up the toxins in the fat later?
There is a valid argument to be made there, sure, because the majority of the toxins out there, when people are concerned about organics, etc., really relates to the fats, because most of these toxins are fat soluble, right? Which is why, you know, organic oil. There's an argument to be made in favor of that.
What, to go with organic meat?
Yeah, like if you're so inclined. There are people that will also say that it's bunk because in theory, yes, it's better, but the problem is that, you know, you've got a farm, let's say for example with vegetables, okay, the farm here is organic, next door the farm is not. So you've got the same water and runoff, etc.
Right.
And the question is, are you really getting a truly organic piece of whatever, vegetable, etc. So.
And what about organic meat?
So again, you know, I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying it's not better. There are we are protected in Canada from certain things. You know, hormones. People are always asking me, what about growth hormones, etc. The government stipulated a definition for the prescribed amount of hormone load that is permissible in the meat when it comes to market is 0.
So this came from the States.
This came from the States.
Didn't have to pass Canadian standards, or
no? No. The products. The way it is that the Canadians will inspect, and they will set out, as with anything else, they will set out the parameters of, what you can ship in. And it is not required by law to identify what beef is coming from the States and what is Canadian. Whereas when you go to the supermarket and you pick up your tomato, your oranges or something, it says this is from Mexico, this is from Chile, that somehow meat. That's called the lobbyist's hard at work.
Can I just ask you, so with respect to kosher meat, where is it coming from generally? Or does it depend where you're buying it kosher?
Well, it depends, because locally, Shefa has a shkita that is local. And they ship in two places. That's right. One is north of Toronto on Mount Pearl, right? And the other one is downtown Toronto. Laser no longer. No. Montreal, they have a variety of packers out there, Continental and etc. International, they've got a few shkitas out there. Mahadran, they also have good meat. But Laser did have a kosher shkita. They no longer do, and they're bringing their meat from the United States, from Ali's. A lot of the flesh, not all, but a lot of the flesh at Sobeys comes from there. It's Ali's. So it's
US.
It's U.S. beef.
What about AgriStar?
AgriStar is, I believe, it's a product.
They're affiliated with Aaron.
That's right. But I think that's carried by Continental.
That might be why it's more expensive.
It's from the States? Not necessarily. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I don't know that they're charging any more or less for the meat that's coming from the States. I know that the meat in the States is cheaper than the meat is here.
Right, I would say if anything, the Canadian meat's more expensive.
Well, right, but the problem is that, tariffs can be involved, right? And that's where you get nailed. Like cheese, there's no kosher cheese production in Canada. It all comes out of the States.
No,
Winnipeg, I think Winnipeg makes some, but they don't make any for export here.
No, we buy it in Winnipeg and bring it back with us.
Yeah.
What about Montreal? I thought they had.
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, the Petite June, the little farm girls, made with love by the little farm girls.
Yeah, but I don't know that it's made in Canada. I don't know if it's made in Canada.
Sorry, I'm just curious, how much salt did you just put on your steak there?
I mean, I sprinkle it by hand, but there's probably a half teaspoon on either side, something like that.
Mentally taking down a
I mean, it's by touch. You got to do it by feel. A steak takes a lot of salt, but also you have to remember that when I go and put this on the grill, there's moisture that's going to be dripping out of the steak, and some of that salt is going to come off, right? So
it's always oversalt.
No, don't oversalt. You're gonna start by seasoning just enough to lightly cover, and then rub it in, and then you'll decide for yourself if you like more or less.
That's just the flavor to bring the juices out.
The salt? Salt is always, with the exception of curing, the sole purpose of salt is to enhance the other flavors. That's it. With the exception of curing, right, which is a whole other discussion.
Salt watermelon, it tastes.
It's amazing. I do a Thai curried watermelon. It's brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to take these out to the grill. Anybody that wants to come out, like in the gold, you won't make a ring out of the gold, I guarantee.
Put me through college. This little flake.
Or you can watch through the window. The window's right beside it.
I'm gonna put you outside too. Okay. That'll be okay.
Is it snow?
Yeah, there's actual snow. I definitely need shoes.
So bring your shoes or boots.
Robert, put your boots on.
I am. I'm gonna get my shoes. It's like this mojito.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Not that cold. By the grill, it's not cold.
Okay, so. Oh yeah, this has been on already for like 20 minutes.
How is this?
So here's the thing. When you look at a grill, you want to picture a big X, okay? And the best way to cook the steaks is to turn them 3 times. So you'll see, I'm putting the steak on. Sorry?
Do you need a beer while you grill?
No, I'm good, thanks.
I just feel like you have to.
How hot is it, the barbecue right now?
Well, I mean, it's cooling down a bit now. It was at about 500 degrees.
Is that how hot it should be when you start?
If for a steak like this, yeah, you want a high heat short cook. Okay. So you can see I'm putting the flesh on an angle.
Why is that? Why is it on an angle?
Because I want to have nice clean grill marks. What we refer to in French as a quadrillage. This is very important.
You need the double X or the X, sorry?
That's right. You want the X-shaped marks, and that's achieved by putting it on an angle, and it's all going to speak to the finished product.
Is that for aesthetic purposes or for taste purposes?
It's really aesthetic, but also
aesthetics is part of the experience.
Well, that's it, because you eat with your eyes first. So a steak that looks like it's been burned, or that it's been abused, it's just not as appealing. Okay, now because it's cold out, I'm gonna close the lid.
Well, it's actually heating us up. That's good.
It's okay.
You normally barbecue with an oven?
When it's hot out, yeah, absolutely, because I'm gonna try and get my grill up to 600-700 degrees, and I can, yeah. But no. What it is that there's natural hot spots and cooler spots on your grill, and so. What you end up with is an area where you can mark, and then another area where you can sort of let it go slowly. So what I'm looking for now is that it should start to caramelize on the one side, that I should have some nice grill marks, but I don't want it. I want to keep an eye and make sure it's not flaming up. When that side is halfway done for that side, I'm going to turn them over in the same direction it is now, so on the same axis. Okay. What we want to do, and you'll see this when you've gone out for a steak or when you cook your own steak, for people that lay their steak down and they let it cook and then they flip it this way so they get a nice X, and then they turn it over this way and they do the same thing, they flip it over like this. So what happens? When you cut into your steak, you get a thick piece that's like well done, and a thin spot in the middle that is whatever color you want, medium rare, medium, and then another thick line of well done. By turning it 3 times, we're gently applying heat this side, and we flip it over, apply some heat that side, flip it back, apply some heat that side, and then you finally turn it over again, and you apply the last bit of heat on the other side. So what you end up with is a little bit of caramelized, nice, that beautiful developed flavor on the outside, the color you're looking for with a thick band of it, and then the outside on the other surface.
So a double flip is best.
3 flips.
Oh, so you are recommending it?
That's right. So I'm saying 3 flips.
3 for 1.
Right?
3 or
no, it's
3 and
1,
2, 3.
Are these burners on full?
No.
It's cold. Yeah, I think you're already getting it on stop on that one. I'm not sure. I think you're already. Yeah, there.
You ever put steaks in the oven after you've done the caramelization?
If you need to, if it's a very thick steak, yes.
Are these considered very thick?
No. No, these you have no problem cooking on a grill completely. A 24-ounce steak, depending on what you're looking for, you might, especially like at the restaurant, I needed that grill up full power. So.
And what about on the stovetop?
So a stovetop, you want to treat it the same way. Okay. The French only. What do you mean? If you're doing it in a pan.
In a pan.
Yeah, the French don't use a grill.
And you do the exact same ingredients as in a pan? The exact same thing?
Yep. That's right.
Okay.
Mitch,
yeah.
You worked at 398 West, which is arguably was one of the best kosher restaurants. How would you say it compared to a non-kosher restaurant?
It was just as good. I mean, there were, you have to compare apples to apples. We weren't North 44 in that we didn't have the manpower or the palate to do some of the more artistic items. We were more of a steakhouse than a proper fine dining restaurant, although it was fine dining level service. But first of all, I can tell you that the meats, I didn't do anything different with the meat there that I did at the Air Canada Center when I was there at the South Gate. or any other place, the Royal York Hotel, etc. It was the same grade of beef, it was the same aging process, same quality. The only thing is, ironically enough, because I still get people every now and again that say to me, wow, $3.98 was so expensive. And these people are definitely, they require some psychiatric help, because if you go to Harbor 60 or if you go to Barbarians, the same piece of flesh is more expensive. And that's true.
Right, it's a fallacy that people think.
Which one? This one? No, it's not a hamburger.
Are you alarmed by any of this?
So you
Beg your pardon?
Are you alarmed or disconcerted by the flaming?
No, that's
as
nothing.
I would be.
That's fine.
Oh, we're not going to see
Whoa,
it.
what about that?
That's nothing.
Because sometimes
If I may ask, what was it like working at the Royal York Hotel?
Well, it was interesting. It was a mixture of sweet and sour. You know, you're 16, 18 hours a day, and you're paid for 8. And
What?
you know, sure.
Did they give you a place to sleep at night then?
Yeah, when you had to close at like 2:30 in the morning and be back at 5:30, sure, they had to give you a room. Okay, this one's almost done.
Really, being a chef is not very much a it's very much a thankless job. Nobody.
It's not what people normally think of it as being. It's not as glamorous as you think. I mean, there are times where, you know, you have some, you know, there are interesting times where you're serving celebrities or whatever it is. That can be fun, but it's not the norm, and it's a lot more painful and grueling than most people. Most people couldn't take it. That's the truth. Most people would not be able to tolerate it, and they wouldn't be interested in tolerating it. I endured some things in my training that you know, people are always saying to me, you know, you'd be arrested for doing now.
Now we want to know those stories.
Care to share?
You hope. You hope. Doesn't happen as often.
So you say 3 times. So you did sort of online, and then you flip it on the axis, like the same line, and then you do a sideways.
It's not sideways. So basically, the first one was going across this way, and then the next, after it's been flipped the second time, it goes across that way.
And then the third.
The third comes back in the same direction as it is on the second flip.
What did the Queen of England think of your food?
Well, she doesn't really talk much to you. She just said thank you. And
Did she give a good
I
tip?
did. She doesn't tip at all. Her husband Philip is very nice. He speaks to you. He's eager to speak to you, and when she's not with him, he eats really, you know, naughty stuff. And when she's with him, it's very boring, chicken and vegetables and all that. And then she doesn't even eat it.
Did you bake for her?
I cooked for her.
Did she like it?
Well, I hope she did. She did say thank you.
But she can just be polite.
She is very polite, sure.
I would assume that if the Queen of England didn't like your food, she wouldn't feel like she obligated to say thank you. She could just not say anything to you, and you'd think that she was the Queen of England.
That's it. That's it. No, thank you.
If you made really good food, you would have been knighted.
That could be a problem. I think my rub might have a problem with that. The whole bowing and crossing thing. Yeah.
Do you think we're ever going to see a kosher Michelin star?
What's that?
Will we ever see a kosher Michelin star?
First of all, Michelin is only in Europe. It's not here in North America. It's possible. I understand that there's some very good food in France.
What's the highest award you get in
North America?
They're about that. About the knighting thing.
Okay, I wanted to
5 diamonds.
I was outside so I can show my fingers anymore.
I think it's
Ruthie, a little embarrassing. You're Russian. You should be able to handle this.
I know, but
She's also Israeli.
Really? She's part Israeli? She was born here.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
It's wrong if you can turn it down. Turn it down.
This side here is
in general.
That's so
You look hungry.
I'm starving right now.
Okay, Noam, you know what?
I've already eaten.
Yeah. We need to ask the Baal somebody for some kind of a platter or something that these steaks here on top are good.
Okay. So what's the best kosher
we don't have to worry too much.
Balabus.
Anywhere. Balabus.
Yeah,
and many thanks must be given to the Balabus.
I love that.
Without him, there would be no place.
It's good, yeah? Yeah.
Wow. What's the best kosher restaurant you would say out there?
Wow. Thing is, I haven't been to the States since we became Shomer Shabbos, so it's hard to say because I hear there's some great places down there. Lipperman, Prime Grill.
What's the kosher restaurant in Toronto?
Plead the Fifth.
So you'd say it would be cheftogo.com. Would you say it's cheftogo.com or sorry, kosher gourmet?
I got a Prime.
Exquisite Gourmet.
Exquisite Gourmet, my
Yeah,
apologies.
that's the new one. That's the new one. Yeah, well.
Do you work at Kosher Gourmet?
No, but I own Exquisite Gourmet. It's my company. What is Exquisite Gourmet? It is a new catering company that is. Man, oh man. I work for myself now.
What did you used to work?
A lot of different people. Well, I didn't work for her. I served her when I was at the hotel.
Any other good celebrities?
Oh, at the hotel?
Yeah.
Oh, between there, I mean, I worked at the Rosewater. I worked at a lot of high end. All the places I worked were really high end, so I served all manner of celebrities. Some of them are really nice. Some of them are really creepy. I don't know if you watch movies. You know the actor Gabriel Byrne?
What?
Gabriel Byrne. He was in that movie End of Days or whatever. Like, he is 3 times more creepy. Yeah, I'll come and get it.
Hey, Hubs. Pay it forward.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? Mitch, not that I care. How much longer are we outside for?
Like
2 minutes?
2 minutes?
Oh, yeah? Oh, wow, okay.
Man up, come on.
We're going to cut these in half?
Yeah, I'll slice it out.
Yeah.
It's important that they rest a little bit before we cut into them, because otherwise they'll just be dry.
Now, Mitch, you mentioned that. What food do you think would be good in a marinade?
Thank you.
Or do you think everything should just be allowed to express its natural?
No. Marinades are good. Marinades are good. You know, it's interesting to see the different flavor profiles, because with marinating, the point should not be to mask what's there. The point should be to sort of highlight nuance of flavor that's present.
Like when you put mustard seed in that rack of lamb.
That's right. That brought out certain characteristics of lamb.
Yeah, I've noticed. I had another lamb, and the lamb ribs that I bought that weren't good enough. Remember those? So a friend of mine, I gave them to a friend of mine, and he cooked them for like 8 hours. And they came out. The fork just went right through them.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. They had mustard in it, whole mustard seed. Like he made a brine for them, which he used like just a bunch of vegetables that he poured boiling water over and some like pepper and stuff.
So, because some of this is going to be more cooked than others. Other will be rare, but
you got one piece, tiny little chunk right there. There you go.
Would you normally marinate?
Should I take that?
Would I normally marinate this? No, I would do exactly what I did this.
All right.
If I was cooking for myself.
How would you cook at a restaurant?
Exactly like this. Exactly what I did.
Somebody want to get the door, please. Kobe, you are such a good man. Oh, not the interesting. I think even better than me. Yeah, I got it. I'll tell me. How do I do it? Come on.
With the study said.
I brought a few pictures so people can understand what he's talking about in terms of pieces of meat. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Step.
Okay. So very important. Once you have
this is like the kedusha part. You can't talk during kedusha.
Yeah, this is
the Fenestre. This is where
it's all happening. Because you can ruin what you just did right now very easily. If you cut into it right away, you will have ruined everything you just did. All the aging, spending money on a better piece of flesh, cooking it nicely, it can be ruined if you just cut into it right away. Because you need to let it rest. So it depends. The whole prime rib would rest for about 30 minutes.
The whole prime rib.
5 minutes is good.
This is treated nicer than I am.
Not by no.
Wow, that really. Wow.
No, but this
the first platter that came in, this is good. So we have plastic plates, or what do we?
In the dining room, yeah.
Okay, so if somebody wants to bring in some plates, what I'll do is I'll
my hand.
There's some cutlery in there if someone wants to bring it in. Yes.
Yeah.
That's 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's been in. This is the first platter that we sent in, right? So you can see this is what I was talking about. When you turn it the 3 times, you have a little bit of this caramelized exterior on either side, and you have the majority of the desired color that you want. Okay, if you only turn it twice, you don't have that. You have a lot of well done and a little bit of the rest. If you cut into the meat right away, you will find that all of the juice ends up on your plate. Okay, as opposed to staying in the meat. Because what happens when you put any type of protein to heat, what happens is the moisture all runs to the center. It runs away from the heat. And so if you cut into it without allowing it to rest, then you're going to basically just take all that juice and let it out. The protein, the meat is like a sponge. So by resting it, what happens is the moisture comes back out into the whole steak. So now what you'll have, theoretically, is a nice soft piece of meat. You always want to slice against the grain. I mean, you look at it, you can see the direction that it goes. A steak, you're gonna, it'll be pretty easy, but with a brisket, it's difficult. If you look at the brisket like this, as a whole piece, you cut the brisket. You've got the single, the thinner part, and the double. You cut on the angle, right? So you cut just like this, all the way along on the angle.
Why do you cut against the grain?
Because, okay, so think about it. That's right. It's more tender this way. Think about a bundle of straws. Think about holding a bundle of straws. If you take a whole straw and you put it in your mouth, you try and chew, it's got a lot of structure. It has a full structure that you're trying to chew through. If you cut across the straws, you've got all these little pieces. What happens? It makes it very easy to chew through.
Is there a reason you also do it at an angle each slice? Or is that just the way?
That it looks nicer. You know, it's going to present. It's going to present nicer. So feel free. Here's a pair of tongs. Take. It's in the height. I don't think I have to.
Can we have somebody in charge of doing that? Otherwise, people are not.
Well, there you go. No one's volunteered.
I'll do that. All right. Who's number 1?
Me.
There you go. Skaya.
Second one goes to the Bal and Bala Sabot.
Exactly.
I think.
Yeah, please.
You do the ladies first.
All right.
Thanks.
Here, forks.
Now, if you use anything more than a plastic knife, then that would be defeating the purpose, right?
Well, you know what? With a really good piece of flesh, you won't need
You need
it.
to put more than 1 slice on each.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm.
Well, we don't know how many.
We don't know how many we're supposed to eat. Oh.
There's still another pile there. Yeah.
Okay.
A larger pile.
Oh, wait, Mitch, we're okay with giving out a whole
We have
bunch?
red wine to go with this.
Well, yeah, got many some, yeah.
Rabbi?
All right. Next.
Okay.
Rabbi's wife?
Yeah, Rabbi.
1, 2,
Wait, I'm confused. Beyonce? Where is she?
These guys?
Oh.
Yeah, they'll have a slightly different texture.
There's two plates there, so please.
You always don't want to eat.
Whoa, that's an awesome one.
How come you skinny lady?
I'm
gonna
give
give
that one
Actually, do you
to.
want this one?
You don't be shy.
My other fiance.
Yeah.
There's a good amount of flesh here.
All right. Cool. Whoa.
Everybody should have
1, 2,
problem.
3. I would love some red wine when it gets to me. Someone next.
This is a
1,
The ladies here.
2,
Behind you.
and 3. Next.
There you go. Ladies. There you go, behind you.
1,
Yeah.
2,
I mean, they're all kind of.
3.
So the question came
No,
up
you
how
Wallet.
it's affiliated with the program.
These ones are the lead pieces. Wait for
So folks, the Bala Sabais wanted to.
The question came up,
Yeah.
how do I know this group of people here? And I said, I really don't. I know Chef Mitch Lipperman, and the reason why is he did a fabulous barbecue for us. When we moved into this house a year and a half ago, but when we moved, instead of doing a housewarming, we did a goodbye house party. street to our old house in our old neighborhood, and we're associated with Village Shul, and I tell you, there are so many decent people there, but I've never seen them fighting. Like, literally, there was one point where two people had their fork in the same steak trying to grab it. It was unbelievable. He made an unbelievable barbecue for us on the hottest day that year.
That was a hot day.
It was a very hot day.
It was.
So
It was.
that's how we got affiliated with this.
I'll take that.
Thank you very much, Leah, for supporting the program. This is excellent.
We're actually very happy to meet all of you, and if you guys want to come for Shabbos anytime.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome to give us a call and come for Shabbos. I think there might be some leftovers.
While Chef Mitch is doing some cutting, just a couple of quick announcements. This Friday night at my house, we're having part of the Lely Mood with Shimshi Dukes. Shimshi Dukes will be speaking at my house. We're having an oneg afterwards for young adults and for students. That's this Friday night. Don't forget, Shabbat morning is Parshat Zachor, so everyone should make their effort to come hear the Parshat Zachor out in Shul. Motzei Shabbos is Purim. We're having 7:30 is Megillah reading at the Beit. Afterwards, we have a party, a celebration, hypnotist, music, dinner.
Wow, hypnotist.
And not hypnotist, an illusionist. Sorry.
Okay.
That's also okay. That's 7:30 at the Beit. Motzei Shabbos. Sunday afternoon, the drop-in at the Greenbergs from 2 to 4 p.m. So come by, and we're collecting money for Matanot Evyonim. So if you still haven't contributed,
we're also collecting money for tonight's event.
I'm collecting money for tonight's event as well.
And just like Matanot Levyonim, it is mandatory.
And don't forget, in 2.5 weeks we have our second cup event. Come on out, bring your parents. March 9th at the second cup from 9 to 11 p.m.
Here, one second.
So that's
all early.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's from the eye.
The two pieces.
If you give him a piece for small meat, I'll eat it.
Yeah, but then I don't get as much meat. Thank you, that's perfect.
I'll give him all fatty meat. All right.
Don't trust me, remind me.
Is there any chance I could get some more?
Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Amen.
This
is unbelievable. I just had a little nub, but those nubs are amazing, crispy. You go there and you eat what they have, and you're like, there's no way I could ever make this at home. And you go there and you're like, all you need is 3 ingredients, and only one of them really needs to be like something special, like cracked pepper. Okay, fine. You know, like that's something that I would go out of my way to buy. But salt and olive oil is something I get naturally.
No, you know what you could do really nowadays? The easiest thing, they already sell pepper shakers that they have the whole pepper in them.
I noticed them at Cane's.
And it's a grinder on its own.
Yeah, I noticed them at Cane's actually. I think.
McCormick, yeah.
I don't even remember. Here. Oh, here. I thought I was done, but apparently there are more people that still need.
You can hide it.
So.
Feel good? You don't like? Oh, okay.
They're good.
I just feel like one that has less.
Okay. Then I'm going to select my own. There we go.
Right, that's what we're used to. More the medium well.
Yeah. How are you enjoying this? You okay?
Mitch, you converted me to medium rare.
Good.
Is this medium rare or medium?
Yeah, that's medium rare. That is a textbook medium rare.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's a textbook medium rare. This here is approaching rare. You see the translucency? That's rare.
I used to be
below that is blue rare.
Medium. I used to be medium, not medium rare.
No, that's done. But I'll tell you what, I do roasts all the time for like Shabbos lunch, and I'll prepare the roast the day before, and I undercook it a little so that my wife is going, when she puts on the black, she'll come back and leave a nice medium rare roast.